On this episode of Fixing My Screw-Ups, I try to squash a bug that prevents the player from dying. I take another crack at creating a sprite that might actually look like a ghost. And I show you how I get the player to shake what I created. If any of this sounds even remotely interesting, I encourage you to keep watching. Now off to the project!
At the end of my last video, I mentioned that I encountered a glitch with my player not dying properly. Don't you just hate it when that happens? So real quick, let's go over the problem again and how I fixed it. The problem ended up involving a timer that was supposed to count down to 0 after the player dies. When the timer reaches 0, the player respawns. What I was doing was starting the timer every single time the player touched an enemy, which means the timer got restarted and never reached 0. I fixed this by adding a boolean, a true-false statement variable for those who don't know, which is called isPlayerKilled. The first time the player hits anything that should kill it, the timer is started and isPlayerKilled is set to true. This prevents the timer from restarting. Once the timer counts down, a function for respawning the player runs. In that function, isPlayerDead is set back to false to begin the process again. You know, if the player feels like going off and dying again. After all this, I also had to prevent the player from moving while they were waiting to respawn. It kind of wrecks the whole hey you're dead vibe if I let them move around the screen. For this I used another boolean called isAlive. If it's false, then the player can't move. Again, I use killPlayer and respawnPlayer functions to switch this boolean at the appropriate times. With the player dying like it should, it became apparent that I couldn't put off making a death animation any longer. So I decided if I was going to be messing around with the player's sprite sheet anyways, I might as well change the character so they look less like an octopus, and more like the tortured soul searching for bits of their lost humanity that they were always supposed to look like. What we're looking at now is me going through the process of creating the final death animation and tweaking some things to get the look I want. This all looks fine, but let's speed this up a bit so I can show you the final result. There it is! I think it looks good on its own, but the real test will be how it looks in game. Let's get back into the game real quick and check it out. I personally think the new player sprite sheet is a lot better, but I'm always interested in what you think, so if you have any thoughts or opinions about the new character, please let me know in the comments below. As we're going through these new animations, this is a good time to cover how this works on the code side. So you're looking at the function that handles all the animations for the player. At first glance, you might think I wrote the same code twice, and I did, sort of. I need the player's animation to change based on whether the player has the skull or doesn't have the skull. The rest of the function works based on a variable called animState. The variable is a string that gets changed based on what action the player is doing. Is the player walking? Change animState to walk. Is the player standing still? Change animState to idle. When the player dies, the level manager actually changes the animState to death. This function is only called once, and it's in the player controls function, which, you guessed it, handles all the controls for the player. The reason it's only called once is because I ran into a couple of issues when I tried to play multiple animations, mainly the walk animation being stuck on the first frame.
Before I go ahead and end this video, I just want to go over a lesson I was reminded of this week. This lesson will probably show up in multiple videos, and I'll get burned if I ever forget to do it, but it's to comment my code. So, I've been pretty good about it this project, and it's allowed me to easily find and fix bugs. Take the bug at the beginning of this video, for example. Because it's been such a long time since I've had to deal with the actual way that I kill the player, comments allowed me to reacquaint myself with this section of code and easily find and fix the bug. Had I not done that, I think it would have taken much, much longer to find and fix the bug. That being said, this is the end of the video. If you enjoyed the video, please like and consider subscribing. Do you have any suggestions or critiques? Please leave a comment down below. The advantage of being a small channel is I can reply to every single comment. So, as always, have a good day or night whenever you're watching this video, and have a good one.
But the only thing in life that has meaning are the things you gotta work for, believe me.